So WordPress is built with something called the observer design pattern. This means that it lets its developers subscribe to certain events and certain things that happen in the WordPress ecosystem and let the user execute their own pieces of code or even change some of the variables that WordPress itself uses in order to change the outcome. Let's take a look at how this actually works. Let's create a little makeshift user class. Let's make a class called user. Let's give it a name and a last name property. Let's create a constructor and put some dummy data in the name and last name. And let's create a little function called say hello, which just echoes the first name and the last name with the word hello in front of it. Let's pretend like this is default WordPress functionality and we cannot change this anymore. We can only interact with it. So let's create a new user and let's call the say hello function on it. When we refresh the page, we can see hello Mark Hendricks at the top of the page, like we expect. Now the problem is that we maybe don't like the way the say hello function works and we want to change something about it. The way it's set up like this, we cannot change it at all. We can maybe take the properties from them. Well, we can't even do that because they're private. So the whole user class is useless to us if we don't like the way the say hello function works. So what does WordPress do? It gives us some tools with which we can interact with the say hello function to maybe alter it so we do like the way it works. So what WordPress does is it gives us some events we can hook into to execute our own code. It looks like this. So they're gonna call a function called doAction, which actually means everybody who wants to do something right now, I will execute it right now. And a way for WordPress and for the users to know which action is happening, it gives it an arbitrary name. So a way we could execute some code right here in the say hello function would be like this. We could say add action and call the same hook defined right here, so the before hello. And now we can pass a callable function to it. So let's make a little inline function for the sake of example. And inside of here we can do whatever we want. So let's say something simple like before hello, just echoing a string, maybe new line. And what will happen right now is when the say hello function gets called, it's first gonna execute all the callable functions that are hooked on this before hello name. And we right here said, okay, if you're gonna do the before hello action, I want to also execute a little bit of code and it's gonna be like this. We can save this and reload the page and we can see here before hello, then the echo, and then there's another action called after hello, but nobody hooked into it, so we don't see anything. If we would define another action just below here and use the after hello name, then we would see some changes. Let's say bye. Let's refresh the page. And then we can see now something happens right here. And this is a way for us to execute pieces of code in places where we normally couldn't really execute anything. But this is not all WordPress uses for us to interact with its code. It also has a slightly different way called filters. So let's say we do not echo this directly and we save it in a variable and only echo it after that. We can now let the developers interact with this by calling a filter. So we can say apply filters and then give it a name. Let's call it hello message and then pass a variable to this. What this is going to do is we can say, okay, all the developers, you can hook onto this title on the hello message and we'll pass you the message and you can do whatever you want with it. And this function will actually return the result of all the filters executed next to each other. So we can save the result of this applies filters again into the message and then we can echo it. So we expose our message variable to all the developers, and they can change it and pass it back to us. If we now reload the page, we see nothing has happened. We passed it to all the callables subscribed to the hello message title, but nothing is subscribed, so nothing will happen. So the message just gets passed again back to message, and we echo the message. Now let's add a filter with the hello message tag and add an inline callable. And now we can let the callable accept a message, and we can let it return the message. And inside this function, we can do whatever we want with the message right here. It is very important to return the message, because if you do not return anything, then the message gets lost and nothing gets passed into this variable and the message is deleted. So you really have the power to do anything with the message you want. So let's change the message. And let's say the message should be hello Mark. Then we save the file, reload the page, and now we can see that the message gets overwritten with our new message hello Mark. We can now also see that if we remove the return from message and we reload the page, then nothing gets echoed because the message is now an empty variable. This is the basic functionality of hooks in WordPress. These actions and filters are scattered all around the WordPress project, and every plugin and every theme has a lot of hooks you can hook into, you can subscribe to, and change and interact with them. Now let's say that we hook multiple times into the before hello message. So if we add another hook to this and we say before hello 2, and we refresh the page, we can now see that we have 1 and we have 2. Now in this case it's really easy because we are one developer and we are the only ones interacting with the hook. But the reality is that in WordPress, multiple sources and multiple plugins and multiple themes are gonna hook into the same thing. And to create a little bit of order, there's a ranking variable which determines the order in which these subscribed functions get executed. So we can actually pass another parameter to this, and the default value is 10. So both of these subscriptions are the 10th in row to get executed. And because we registered this one first and this one second, that is the order. But now let's say that this got a lower ranking of 9. And we refresh the page. Now we can see that, okay, 9 is before 10, so it gets executed even earlier. If we say this is 1, then that's on top of the ranking again, and it gets executed earlier. This is especially important with filters, because when you have multiple filters, then you get the result of the previous function. So let's say here we say message is just Mark, and here it is Hendrix. And we refresh the page. Now we can see that it's Hendrix, but let's give this a ranking of 5. Now this one gets subscribed first and this one gets subscribed second, so this one gets executed earlier and this one gets executed second, so Hendrix is on top. But if we set this lower than 10, remember the default is 10 right here, then this one gets executed first, this one gets executed second, and Mark will be the final modification. So when we refresh, we see Mark. There's a final handy thing that we can do with actions and filters, actually that WordPress can do with actions and filters, and that is it can pass multiple variables which it thinks is useful for the developer and it wants to have inside their functions. So we saw that we could pass variables to filters, but we can also pass variables to actions. So let's say that before the hello, we maybe think it's useful for the user to also have the name and have the last name right here. We can pass as many variables as we want, but this is enough for now. And now we can say below here in the before hello function, let's remove this one so we only have 1. And now we can say we accept here the name and we accept here the last name. And before we can do that, there is a final attribute we can add to this, and that is a number of how many parameters we gonna accept. So the default right here is 1, and normally we only accept one variable. But if we want to accept multiple, we have to increase and specifically say how many of the variables we want to accept. So in this case, there are only 2, so we can have a max of 2 variables. So we're gonna say 2 and save this. And let's print this. So let's say this is before, so before hello, and then say name and last name. Let's save this and refresh it. And now we can see before Mark Hendricks, the first name and last name, they get passed to the action. We can also pass multiple variables to the filter. So we always have this default of 1 in the message, but we can also say, let's give them some. Now we can take the hello message and just copy and paste it over here. And the name and the last name we got here. Now, when we save this and reload, we can see hello Mark Hendricks. So this is the basic way that hooks work in WordPress. We got, to recap, we got actions, which is used to perform a little bit of code on a specific place in the WordPress ecosystem. And we have filters, which is used to modify variables that are used in the WordPress code. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching. Bye.